let's see. I did a video about on the 15 minimum wage. I did a video on it earlier about the parliamentarian basically blocking it. But will Kamala Harris overrule the Senate? Senate parliamentarian to get this passed because she's the tiebreaker here. The Senate parliamentarian has ruled that oh shit, hold on. I know this page sometimes goes slow, so hold on. Here. Basically, we should have had the $15 an hour minimum wage passed, but according to the Republicans, they didn't want to pass the $15 an hour in there along with the COVID, so they told the Democrats, that the only way that the $15 an hour will pass is if you take it out of the COVID and put it into some other bill. But Elizabeth McDonnell is the Senate parliamentarian. She's a nonpartisan advisor on how the congressional chamber's rules and protocols are applied. But McDonnell had ruled that the policy violated the Byrd Rule, meaning it doesn't qualify for passage via the budget reconciliation. In a statement obtained by Newsweek, the White House press secretary Jen Psaki said that Biden was disappointed at this decision. I would be too. But President Biden is disappointed in this outcome as he proposed having the $15 an hour minimum wage as part of the American Rescue Plan. He respects the parliamentarian's decision, which I don't, and the Senate's process, but he will work with leaders in Congress to determine the best path forward because no one in this country should work full-time and live in poverty. He urges Congress to move quickly to pass the American Rescue Plan, which includes 1,400 rescue checks for most Americans, funding to get this virus under control, and the aid to get our schools reopened and desperately needed help for the people who have been hit hardest by the crisis. But McDonnell's ruling could possibly be overturned by Vice President Kamala Harris, but it's unclear if Harris would do this. If she doesn't, Democrats will have to introduce a minimum wage hike as its own standalone Senate bill. But rulings by the parliamentarian are advisory, though the Vice President can overrule the parliamentarian's advice. But it is rare for a Vice President to use this authority at all, however. But the most recent incident of a Vice President overruling the Senate parliamentarian was back in 1975 when Nelson Rockefeller, who was then Vice President under Gerald Ford, ignored then parliamentary Floyd Riddick's advice about procedure to change rules governing the filibuster. But the congressional Democrats are aiming to use the reconciliation to enact President Joe Biden's $1.9 trillion coronavirus relief package with or without Republican support. The legislative route would allow Democrats to avoid the 60-vote filibuster and pass legislation through a simple majority. The main restriction to reconciliation is the so-called Byrd Rule, named after the Senator Robert Byrd, and it allows a provision to be removed if it is deemed extraneous to the budget. It's up to the parliamentarian to decide what is extraneous, and there has been widespread debate whether a minimum wage increase could be done through reconciliation. The House Budget Committee Chairman John Yarmouth of Kentucky had deemed it a stretch, and Republicans were strictly opposed to this idea. But even Biden himself reportedly acknowledged to mayors and governors that the policy may not make it into the final package. But according to Politico, the president said that he really wanted it to be in there. But it doesn't just look like we can do that because of the reconciliation, but Democrats were confident of their reasoning as to why it should be included in the final bill. But the House Speaker, Nancy Pelosi, who's a Democrat from California, said Thursday, just hours ahead of but just hours ahead of the parliamentarian announcement, that they felt that they had a very strong argument. The Byrd Rule doesn't apply to the House of Representatives, and the chamber is expected to vote on and advance its COVID-19 bill, which includes a minimum wage hike, 1,400 stimulus checks, expanded unemployment benefits, and more, basically by Friday. I didn't see exactly what they did yesterday for it. But Gordon Gray, who's the director of fiscal policy at the American Action Forum and a former staffer for the GOP, Senator Rob Portman of Ohio, told Newsweek ahead of Thursday's announcement that one second here. But Gordon Gray, the director of the fiscal policy at the American Action Forum and a former staffer, had for the GOP Senator Rob Portman of Ohio, he basically told Newsweek ahead of Thursday's announcement that if the parliamentarian rolled it out, then I wouldn't expect it to see it in the final bill. Democratic Senators Joe Manchin of West Virginia and Kirsten Sinema of Arizona have repeatedly expressed skepticism about including the proposal in a reconciliation. Manchin told The Hill in early February that he was supportive of basically having something that's responsible and reasonable, but not a $15 minimum wage that is responsible and reasonable because people are fucking poor. But Sinema had told Politico that it's not a budget item and that it shouldn't be in there. But Democrats who control the 50-50 Senate by the slimmest of margins cannot afford to lose any of their members in the final vote. So far, 0 Republicans have expressed total support for the $1.9 trillion package. But ultimately, the imperative is to pass the COVID relief, and Gray said, to the extent that the administration and the majority is talking about public support for the package. But I'm going to take a big flying leap and guess that it's not contingent on minimum wage either, but rather it's a $1.9 trillion in vaccine checks and other kinds of relief. I don't think they're going to sacrifice that for a minimum wage increase.